hey, by the way, I don't know if you know, but in your inventory is like a $5,000 thing that you just caught. That's going to go viral. You're going to talk about that. There's a scene in the cinematic where you're like there's multiple scenes in the cinematic, but it's that moment where you're like, I love that they have a relationship. And I literally am getting goosebumps now thinking about it. The other day I said to Rich, I was like, it's Pokemon with NFTs. And he was like, holy shit, that could be really good. And I was like, but the problem with it is, mainstream doesn't like that. But
hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce Kieran Warwick, the co-founder and CEO of Illuvium. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you, Caveman?
Oh, I'm doing great. Doing great. It's a little cold here in the northern hemisphere. In my hometown, we got like 3 feet of snow. How's it in Australia? You guys are toasty over there, right?
Yeah, we're sweet. It's kind of up and down, but it's still hot, which is good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, for the interviews today, I'm going to try and pick your brain with as many leaks as I can and share that to the community. And obviously, you'll give us as much as you can. There's been a lot that have been popping around, so hopefully we'll be able to address some of those. But I do want to start with a little icebreaker question. Throughout your time starting this, studio, how has the pressure ramped? Was it most intense at the beginning? How has it evolved over the years?
It's been interesting. I think there was a bit of a honeymoon phase when we launched, where the market was in such a positive place. I kind of feel like there wasn't much that we could do wrong at that stage. And so I guess you could say there wasn't as much pressure. And then once the bear market hit and we had a whole bunch of investors that had gotten in at higher levels, then the pressure started increasing, and there was a lot more negativity. We've also delayed our launch by a significant amount, which it puts a bunch more pressure on. But I don't know, for the most part, I think I deal with pressure just personally pretty well. This is, I think, my fourth or fifth startup, and 2 of those other startups I worked with Kane, our older brother, and he puts a lot of pressure on. And so I feel like those experiences allowed me to kind of just be okay with most stuff, so it's not too bad.
Nice. Would you consider yourself the most chill out of your brothers, or who do you think gets the most stressed easy, or how do you feel about that with your siblings?
I mean, I think the most chilled would probably, in nature, would probably be Aaron. He's fairly steady, but I don't know. In terms of pressure, there's a lot of things that I take where I don't want it to affect anyone else in the studio. One of those things is our runway, right? Like there was 12 months ago or whatever, when things started getting a little bit hairy. We didn't know when the bear market was going to end. I take that responsibility, right? It's my job to ensure that we always have enough runway to continue building. And so I guess, things like that can get quite stressful. But yeah, I feel like we're all, we grew up in the same household. There was a lot of pressure on us from a very early age. So, I feel like we all do quite well under pressure.
Nice. I'm sure you need it, especially starting a studio. What was it like in that beginning phase of hiring, finding staff? Because you guys started from scratch, basically. That must have been. I feel like that would be a very stressful part for me, just trying to figure all that out.
I mean, look, I in my previous startup, we raised about 1.5 million in total, and when that was building a food tech startup, and so the entire platform needed to be built from the ground up. There was integrations with different delivery partners like DoorDash and whatever, and you're constantly putting up this front, making yourselves look and seem bigger than you are to try and get these these large scale partnerships. You're doing so many different things. It's why I love doing the marketing in Illuvium. It's, I did marketing inside of pretty much all of my other startups, and so doing it off what I like to call the smell of an oily rag, compared to doing it with $50 million in the bank, it didn't seem like pressure at all. I was finally like, I'm unchained now, and I can actually go out and hire the best people in the world. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun. Still is.
Well, that's incredible. You guys are so close. I know the community is very excited to see this launch. So awesome. Well, let's go ahead and start jumping into the gameplay related stuff, specifically really focusing on Overworld today. We had your videos that you've been dropping about the new Illuvium, the Illuvials in the Overworld, which is looking incredible. It really feels like it's bringing a lot of value in life into the game. How do you feel? Is it? It looks vastly more populated. Have you had a time to play it, and what are your thoughts on its current status?
Yeah, so I played a few builds now, and it's so much better, and it's going to get even better than where it's at, right? Like it's still not at that like crazy level, but there are a couple of new features which we're adding in before we go live, which I think will get it to a really good place. But certainly that the idea of the overworld is boring is gone.
Wow. Well, I mean, the action element of that being incorporated in the overworld, I think, was a key feature that needed to be implemented, and it sounds like it's really going to take off. I am curious, though, with obviously in the most latest video, it did still show that the auto battler would be incorporated, and that would be part of the capture mechanic. I know in other AMAs you've mentioned that will eventually or potentially could be fully in action, like you go and hack and slash with your sword, or potentially other weapons that the ranger could be equipped. How soon do you think that could be implemented? And do you think that would be before open beta or after?
I definitely don't think it's going to get in for open beta, at least not fully integrated, where there's no more auto battler inside of the overworld. But maybe we get to the point where there's a hybrid of both systems being used. Nothing is confirmed with that. We're obviously working really hard at the moment to figure out, okay, what is, we're coming to crunch time now. So
Yeah.
we got to work out what is the best experience. Obviously, hunting is going to be in, and that's really awesome. But is there a way that we can maybe splash in a little bit of combat? Is still up in the air.
How has the build optimization been going? Because I know it can be kind of hard on some PCs, especially Macs. I've heard some people struggle to play the overworld with there, and obviously it's very early betas, so optimization is definitely something that's probably being worked on now.
Yeah, so I'm one of those Mac users, and I always joke around and I say, like, why are you leaving us out? Like, make sure you optimize the build, and the PC version is always better than the Mac, but they're getting better and better at that. And the other day, I was speaking to the Overworld team, and we've obviously increased the amount of interactions that are happening massively, and there's new mechanics. There's also a couple of other things which no one has seen yet, which will be introduced, which will add even more life to it. And so, yes, optimization is something that we need to be very wary of, but we will never take it to the point where it's non-playable, or the FPS is so low that it's kind of like, what the is going on here? But yeah, it's something that we're playing around with at the moment. We'll make it, and it will get better and better over time. But yeah, it'll be fine.
Looking at your video, I started to notice that there's different projectiles, and if you could share any insights on, are those going to be targeted for this kind of projectile is good for the more tanky alluvial. This one's good for fire types. Are we implementing like an element in class system to the ranger rifle, or any leaks you can provide there? Love to hear it.
So they're based on the current weapons that you have now. So there's 5 ammo types, in when you're doing the hunting. So staff, dagger, gauntlet, and yeah, you depending on which ammo type you want to use, it will have a different effect. And yes,
Okay.
some will be better on different alluvials. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And with that, have you I'm sure the team has looked into it and stuff, but from my experience with any shooter, you have a really bad you know, a lot of people will go and they hack, they use cheats to like have aim bots. Do you think that that could be an issue with Illuvium, that you have like, let's say, farming guilds that are just going through, they apply their hacks and they're just like going to the highest part of the map and they're just gunning and shooting all the rocks and then being able to collect that way. That's just one fear I was thinking of, is that someone could go and harvest the whole map real quick with hacks. And just curious if you have thought about that.
Yeah, so there's going to be anti-cheat detection that we have. We're trying to actually automate that at the moment. But the biggest deterrent for bots is that you've got to pay to go to the region, and we
Hmm.
know that like yes, we can go in and we can ban an account that we know is absolutely uh, doing the wrong thing and cheating. But outside of that, if someone is paying to go into a region, it's sort of like, you know that's fine, right? Like we don't mind. But in terms of the tier zeros and the free regions for you to go and explore, unfortunately, it's just very similar to most games. They are going to be collected, and they're going to be the found the most. So there's not much that we can do there apart from ban any accounts that we can obviously see are doing nefarious things.
Yeah. I mean, it's an arms race that most, even big AAA studios that have hundreds of millions of dollars, that they don't even put that much time into it because they know they can't win it. So it is a little bit different, obviously, with the blockchain integration. But yeah, very interesting. And then I guess on the other side, let's say there's no cheats, no aim assist. How do you feel that the difficulty of hunting will be? If there maybe someone who's not as good at third person shooters, they're trying to chase down that caribou and it gets away often. Um, how does it feel on the difficulty side? Do you feel that casual players will be able to do that pretty well, or?
It has to be, right? So we made the video look more, I would say, like a little bit more challenging, and that's probably at the highest range, right? Like where the higher the tier of the region that you're going into, the harder it is going to be to hunt these alluvials down using the mechanic. But it can't be to the point where no one can do it, right? Like unless you are a pro CS:GO player, you're screwed. That's not what the intention here is. We're looking for it to be super fun for casual players to just be able to go in, collect all 200 plus of the alluvials, and we've got to do that in a way where it's fair for everyone. And yeah, so that's what we're going for there, but also still a little bit fun and challenging as well.
Nice, nice. And with you trying to capture all 200 plus alluvials, how many hours do you think that's going to take? Or what's the grind going to be looking like for some of these overworld grinders?
I don't know. I like the number has gone back and forth so many times where I speak to Ben and he's like, it's got to be 1,000 hours, and then I speak to someone else on the game design team and they're like, oh, it's 250 hours. Like, I don't know exactly,
Mm,
but it's meant to be a progress game, right? Where you've got to spend quite a few hours in order to be able to go and complete everything. And completing everything is capturing all the alluvials. And so, yeah, I can't tell you exactly, but it's going to be a decent amount of time.
ooh, okay. Well, let's talk about those additional regions. Taiga Boreal, I know we've seen a lot of footage on that. That's personally the region that I wanted to buy all my land in. It looks an incredible area. Will that be available on open beta? What will be open on available on open beta? If you could just share that.
So just the three regions that you have now. We were trying to get the other two in, but we just it's cutting it too fine. Like they're very, very close, but it's just, yeah, it's, and I mean, there is a very slight chance that we will be able to add them before open beta, but it's very, very small. It's just these regions take a long, long time to develop, and so yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
That makes sense. Makes sense. And how, looking back, how did you think about the strategy that you went with Overworld? Because if correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually outsourced quite a bit of the block work and stuff to other little studios. And do you think that that was a good strategy, or how has that come back to bite you? Share some of the thoughts of building the studio that way.
I mean, yeah, we had two regions which were outsourced. It was decent, but it's certainly way more efficient for us to do it internally. Like there's yeah, I mean, it costs a lot of money to do it. There's a disconnect between the team and the outsourced studio, and that an artist that is working with the devs at all times and is talking about, hey, like how's hunting going to look, or combat or whatever, like
Hmm. Hmm.
don't make the regions too complex in certain areas because we're just about to implement XYZ feature or whatever. That communication helps to efficiently build the environments. And when you outsource that, you just don't get it. And so I would say it can work, but it's certainly much, much better to have it internal, which is what we're doing now.
Nice, nice. And then for the remaining, you've mentioned five of the regions. The last two, any expectations of when those would be completed, or would that be 2025? How is that looking?
No, definitely 2024. The last time I checked, it was like 75%, and the other one was about 60%. So, and that was a few months ago. So it might have. I'm just trying to pull up my notes now. It might have progressed even further, which is why I'm saying there's a very small chance that we might be able to get those additional regions in. But yeah, I'm reluctant to say without a doubt we will.
No, that sounds good. I understand, and it's always a moving target too. And yeah, very very interesting. Well, I'd like to then jump to more of the purpose, especially with the overworld. It may feel like, okay, this is just a pack opening. We're just going to collect our alluvials. Obviously, the lure has been under lock and key since the beginning of time, and I know that Aaron is the key master, I believe. Is there anything you can share on maybe how questing and missions may work? I know that I think it's going to be more community and the entire ecosystem based, not like a go do this. But do you have any insights on how that might play out in the overworld?
We're actually building a very simple form of, I don't know, you could call it questing, you could call it like completing missions or whatever, but they again make the overworld more interactive, and but they're very simple, right? It's like go chat to someone, they say, hey, go and collect uh, three Ramphys and then fuse them together, and it's like mission complete. And there's a bunch of those that we're building, but yeah, I don't have much more info in terms of like the community quests at this point.
Okay, gotcha. And on the side of lore, and more of like the story, like the reason that like we're here on this planet, the why, nothing.
Not
All right,
touching
yeah.
it.
Not touching it, not touching it. Okay.
You'll
So
figure it out as you go and play the game. You'll figure it out. But yeah, that is a locked box.
very well, very well. Sweet. Well, what else do we got? I guess looking back at the video, and actually I've paused on this one scene, and that's with the drones. So now I'm seeing that the drones will actually be able to help in the hunt as well. They're going to have abilities like they can shoot a whole bunch of missiles. Any other insights or leaks you can give us on different drone abilities? Are they all going to be more combat based, or will they have other perks and abilities?
That you'll have to find out when you play the game.
Damn. All right. All right. I'm trying, team. I'm trying. Sweet. Well, let's start going back to user onboarding. Obviously, a key feature is getting that mass adoption and moving it forward as quickly as we can. How is the flow going to work? Most, let's say, crypto games, it can be a very difficult side of things. How is it going to work with Illuvium? And specifically, how is the IMX Passport going to be integrated? Do we just have to download from Epic Games? Please share your info there.
Yeah, so download from Epic Games. To create a passport wallet, it's literally like 2 clicks. It was, and it takes like 15 seconds. So if you're an Apple user, you can use your Apple ID. If you're on PC, then you can use your Google ID. Obviously, you can also do email and password, but like it's so quick. I did it the other day when we're testing, and yeah, like in terms of mass adoption, it's the exact same an account inside any video game.
Okay. And so it will be fully integrated into the Illuvium account creation also. So when you're creating your Illuvium account, you'll just right there. That's perfect. That sounds really nice. And then that'll be basically just hidden from any traditional gamer who's just like, I'm just here to play the game, and maybe try out the free to play side. And then they'll be like, wow, okay, this is actually something truly amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you'll be able to transfer those assets to a different wallet if you want to, but they'll be secured for you and you won't even know.
That is incredible. I love this technology. It's finally evolving to a stage where it's user facing, and that's really good. With regards to like the monetization model of Illuvium, with fuel pricing and whatnot, I saw your tweet of you doing that first test of buying fuel. Obviously, that price would have been outrageous for doing actual higher stage runs. But can you give us any insights on the strategy behind fuel pricing, and let us know your thoughts there?
I didn't even think about it when I posted that. Right, like it was quite clearly just testing pricing and yeah. So, but no, I think once we get a little bit closer to testnet, we'll release the pricing. It will be done beforehand. We're not going to just hit you with it once you go in, and I don't know. There's been talk as well of it becoming an IIP that the council actually ratifies, and so which would obviously come from the game design team. But yeah, they're literally in the process of finalizing fuel pricing at the moment.
So let's go ahead and jump to that then. Your vision of what this ecosystem looked like, how has that evolved over the years too? Like from your day one, this is what I imagine Illuvium is going to look like, and obviously that might be different from what your siblings and what your developers thought. How has it changed? Like what was your initial idea of how Illuvium would look like?
Initially, it was going to be an overworld like Pokemon type creature capturer that didn't have ridiculous crazy graphics. I just said, look, the collecting stuff is what people want uh, in crypto games. And so we need to have 150 of these characters where you can go into this world and collect them. And then Aaron wanted that was fine for me, right? Like I just wanted to build that, and then Aaron wanted to add in the arena side of things, which I was totally fine with as well because I'm a big fan of TFT, and so it was just meant to be that. Now, obviously, there's Illuvium Zero, there's Illuvium Beyond, and so it's obviously expanded massively from the initial vision. But I think again, going back to that like platform that we built and such a strong IP that has so many different ways that we can go, that we can take this thing, but this idea of an interoperable blockchain game that has interconnected experiences of all different types of games and different genres utilizing the same assets. I think that's going to be really, really cool. And it'll be a massive advantage over, I'd say, one of our competitors who only has a single game. You're going all in on that. But I mean, I guess the same could be said about us spreading a little bit thin
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having three different games. I've been doing a capital raise at the moment, and a couple of investors were like, we think you might have bitten off more than you can chew, right? And then on the flip side of that, other people are like, wow, like this, like we've played the games, we see how this is all going to fit together. This is going to be the new way that developers start building games. And so, I don't know, there's positives and negatives, I guess.
Yeah, I can only imagine. That the term scope creep, it's common in almost any software or engineering discipline. And I can imagine that happened here. When did the idea connect? Was it right when Aaron said, I'll make an arena, and then we'll have your Illuvials fill in the arena"? Like, was that when that connection of making it integrated together? When did that really click?
I think for me, it was more when we started thinking about like Illuvium Zero and
Mhm.
the actual economy, right? Like having another game fill in this give you these currencies which you have to use throughout all of the other games. That was when it sort of started taking shape for me. And then I would hear Aaron speak about a whole bunch of other different games and whatever, and there was interoperability was being thrown around in different games, and I think it sort of just started taking shape over time.
Well, it's definitely one of the best features in my opinion. I think it's so cool that you're going to be able to use assets from one game to another. So maybe I'm just one of those metaverse people who sees that value there. But that's incredible. Awesome. Well, then we're going to move on to retention efforts. Obviously, if we can get that large influx of players to come in at the beginning, how do you plan on keeping them there? Obviously, gameplay is important, but we have a large community, or you guys have a large community fund set aside for community rewards, arena rewards, leaderboard, and then you also have the content creator program. Can you just share how you're planning on implementing a whole bunch of these different strategies to really retain just an entire ecosystem of gamers and content creators?
Yeah, so I mean, incentivization in any business is a huge proponent of a marketing strategy, right? Like it's been tried, it's been tested. As long as you have a really good product, as if you can get them into the funnel, the product should do the talking and keep them engaged. And so, as you said, first and foremost, it has to be a fun gaming experience, and that's why we put so much time and effort over the last 6 months. We could have just said, screw it, we're launching with what we've got, but we wanted to make sure that every one of the games was sticky. And so there's been a lot of effort into that. But getting people into the top of the funnel is incentivizing them is a huge way that we're going to do that. And that was always the plan. We portioned off this million ILV for things like in-game rewards and tournaments and the potential of airdrops. We'd already done a couple of airdrops, and so that is they're the main ones that we're trying to do in terms of getting people in. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because like in crypto, that's going to be the biggest driver, right? Like probably in a really up way, more of a driver than the actual gameplay is going to be what
Mm.
are the incentives? What do I get out of it, right? In playing these games, which this is what I say to the team, right? Like you can't fight against that. If that's what we're playing with, that's what we're playing, right? Like don't you got to work in the realms of what you've got in front of you, and so that's for the crypto people. What I think will be more interesting is mainstream because I see a steady flow of mainstream users starting to come in and they'll want to test out games. There'll be a lot of content creators criticizing, saying like, "Oh, NFTs are bad" and all of that kind of stuff. But as new and really good quality games start coming out, you're going to get this slow trickle of these mainstream gamers that don't know what an airdrop is. Right? They genuinely, they're not going onto some website, connecting up their wallet and saying, yes, sign me up for when you do a drop. They don't know a point system or whatever. And so for those guys, it's either going to be traditional funnels like going and teaming up with content creators and esports teams, maybe even traditional advertising, like literally going onto different platforms, utilizing a whole bunch of really rich media content like cinematics, and getting players to come in through those means. But what I think will be more interesting is like who gets that right, because I feel like a lot of the games right now in this space are set up to attract the crypto user, right? Like the
Mhm.
crypto gamer. It's just throw money at them and they'll come. And if the game, then keep throwing money at them and they'll stay, right? Like that's a very rudimentary way of looking at the marketing efforts that we're going to need over the next 3, 4, 5 years. Certainly effective now, but I think it gets less and less and less effective as time goes on. And what I think will be really interesting is the teams that are able to capitalize on this inflow of traditional mainstream gamers and keeping them engaged
Mhm.
without any sort of financial reward.
Hmm. Okay. And with that, like, what do you think like the biggest marketing like channel that you can use? Is it just content creators? Is it word of mouth, or is it getting like a big trailer on IGN or one of the big platforms? How do you which do you think is the most important there? Or is it just spreading out your resources?
So word of mouth and content creators is the two biggest drivers. If you look at why Power World went so viral, it was Pokemon with guns, right? Like a very easy, digestible thing that people could go, well, I love Pokemon and I love shooting stuff, put it together and I'm in, right? And then obviously from there, the gameplay has got to be really, really good and fun and new and unique. And so uh, with us, I think what Power World was missing is that IP, right? Like you can't go and name 10 of the
Yeah.
characters inside of Power World, right? Like you just don't give a shit, right? Like
Like,
that sort of thing is where Pokemon just destroys them, because they will, if you look at the characters in Pokemon, if you go and see a short on YouTube, or if you go and see like a Netflix show or some kind of like TV show or movie or whatever, the Pokemon fans will flock to it. If Power World put out a TV show right now, you're like, like what am I going to watch, right? And
yeah.
so I think people are really, really, really underestimating how powerful a driver IP is, and how it's going to make people spark up conversations and say, yo, I just went and caught a Ramfire. It's the rarest character that you can get. And then their friends are like, whoa, what the hell is that? And so having that really strong IP is one thing. And then also as well, as people start getting introduced to crypto gaming, they are going to find out whether they even like it or not, right? They're going to find out that, hey, I just caught something and it's worth $15 or 50
Mhm.
bucks or $5,000 or whatever it might be. And it doesn't matter how anti NFTs, how anti anything. I don't care. Like if you go up to someone and say, hey, by the way, I don't know if you know, but in your inventory is like a $5,000 thing that you just caught, that's going to go viral.
Yeah.
You're going to talk about that. You're going to go to school, or you're going to go to uni, or you're going to go to work, and you're going to be like, what the like, I just caught something that is worth more than my monthly salary. Like, what's going on here, right? Like that is, and then if you think about the second proponent there, the content creators, they're going to
Yeah.
say, this dude caught this. He didn't even know. I went up to him. I chatted to him in the overworld. I was like, man, you've got this crazy thing. Like, do you even know how much that's worth? And he's like, no. And that conversation will go viral and content creators will get behind it. So there's so much stuff that can come out of our ecosystem in terms of like viral content and rich content. And so yeah, like obviously we're going to do a whole bunch of the traditional stuff. We are going to do the incentivization and whatever, but I think the core thing to have a lasting IP, like something that like building something towards a riot, is it's paramount to have that storyline, the lore, the characters, the graphics. Like people don't even realize that like the drones that you have, they're your companion. And it's not until, I mean, this was for me, like obviously you play the game, you've got your Mozart or you got whatever drone you've chosen
Mhm.
going around with you, and it helps you to farm. And now, as you can see, it starts like shooting. So that's like your guy, that's your dude. But it really becomes apparent when you look at the cinematic.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
there's a scene in the cinematic where you're like there's multiple scenes in the cinematic, but it's that moment where you're like, I love that they have a relationship. And it, like, I literally am getting goosebumps now thinking about it. And after this scene, you're like, I want a drone, right? Like, where's my drone, right? And and so I think those sort of psychological connections that people are going to make with these characters, that's the stuff that will last decades. That's the stuff that will be compelling when we say, hey, brand new game. And someone's like, yeah, I can't wait to see what this ability looks like in this first person shooter or a dungeon crawler. Or like, what does my Squiz character look like as a cart? What's its
Mhm.
ability going to be? You know, like, or like, I know what it's going to be because I've played the other games. Like, all of these sort of conversations can be had in Illuvium. And I don't see that with many of the other games that are out in this space. Like I just don't. And not every single like we're obviously a collecting IP. So not every game is going to have memorable characters that you understand and you have that connection with. But the ones that do and do it well, it just makes it so much easier to take things like not just inside the games, but anything that you want to do outside of that in the
Hmm.
future.
Well, then what would you get? What would you say your phrase is? If it's not Pokemon with guns, what is Illuvium then? Well, what is your little mantra? That's on the spot. Maybe you know you're marketing for it. You have to think about that for a while. But what would it be? What should we call Illuvium then?
I don't, the other day I said to Rich, I was like, it's Pokemon with NFTs. And he was like, holy shit, that could be really good. And I was like, but the problem with it is, mainstream doesn't like that. But again, do you want to like if you're a crypto person and you see the slogan Pokemon with NFTs. Now you know NFTs. You bought a bored ape or a pudgy penguin or whatever the fuck you're into. You're one of those 10 million people that's into crypto, and you happen to be born before like 19, call it 85. Then you're in. If you hear Pokemon with NFTs, I'm like, yep, I'm trying that. If it actually is. Now, I know people were throwing around Pokemon with a bunch of other games early on, and then you go and you play and you're like, what the I don't care about
Yeah.
any of these characters. None are unique. Like, it's all bullshit. I mean, like a proper, like, holy cow, like, this is actually Pokemon, but they're NFTs. And you understand that NFTs means ownership. That gets that core audience. But the problem is, it's similar to Fight for ETH. Do you
Yeah.
want to alienate mainstream
Yeah.
by, I don't know. So
Yeah. It's a hard
undecided.
one. I've actually thought about it. Like, what would you call Illuvium? Like, how do I describe that short without mentioning crypto? And it's yeah, something that when hopefully if you're watching this, comment below what you think it should be, and we'll try and use something that really generates some hype around it. Cool. Well, then moving on to, let's say, Illuvium Beyond. All right. So Johnny has dropped a new game pitch for Illuvium Beyond. Kieran, have you been able to look at it? What are your thoughts in Illuvium Beyond becoming a game?
Yeah, I looked at it ages ago when he first wrote it up, and it was a bit of a weird thing where like the council blocked it. I don't know. Were you on that council?
I was, and it was something that I thought it was giving a mixed message. And this is another question I'll ask you later: is should y'all be pushing any future games at this point, or is it important to just get the current games that are on the docket out, and so people can get their hands on it, play a game, see how the economy works, see how everything's playing out, and then start thinking about future? Because I also saw your tweet of like listing off your next like top 5 or 7 other genres that you would like to incorporate in the Illuvium ecosystem. Feel free to share what you think.
Yeah, so absolutely. So like I think we need to get out the 3 games that we have been building and do that and think, yes, we've got a good player base across all 3. They deserve that justice, right? Like that we do that. And that's why we haven't gone out and started saying like, hey, we're going to build a new game or whatever. And so yeah, I tend to agree with you. I also don't think that an Illuvium Beyond game is the right thing to build next. I would certainly, for my personal preference, would be something else that's is a little bit more interactive, but again, that's a council thing. Once it goes to vote, you know, we got to build what the community wants us to build. But the reason why I was okay with it, first I was like, I'm a little bit weirded. Like it's an idea, you're allowed to post whatever you want. However, I think if you do post it, just let people know that maybe it shouldn't be the next thing that we build, but it is something that Beyond could turn into. I will say that in the next 5 years, we absolutely want Beyond to turn into its own card game. It has always been the case. And so, I don't want Beyond players to feel like we're going to leave them high and dry. But yeah, I think in terms of impact, we can definitely do something else that will drive, a lot more revenue.
Yeah, and it's also just that art is incredible. Like like I've got my medal, you got yours right behind you. Like it really is some really cool artwork, and I really do feel like that represents me. Like it's a cute little, like it's got a hat. Like I just love it. Like it really feels like it's the most personalized like profile picture or like avatar that I've been able to have in a game, and I think it's something that's unique and truly something that Illuvium has created that attaches to people. So very interesting. And so Kieran, you also, we're posting some tweets saying that this week in the Web3 space is going to be huge. And you said it's not necessarily Illuvium, but there's something big happening. What are you foreshadowing? Like what's happening? Can you share anything?
So it's just a feeling that I get. I think we're poised. Like we had a big lift 3 weeks ago or whatever it was, and things have started to cool off a bit now. And there's whenever I get a ton of followers for no reason on Twitter, it's usually it's usually followed by a big increase in interest from retail. And so that's sort of I'm just getting a few signals here and there. Nothing specific. It's not like X, Y, Z is launching. It's literally just a feeling that I got. And unfortunately, when I tweet, people are like, "Oh, he must know something," and it's like it's just a general feeling. You don't need to go too crazy about it, but we'll see.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, I know we're running out of time, so I'll ask you just one last question because I know everyone wants to ask it. Just any updates to the timeline, or are we still on track with your last posting, which I'll show on screen here? Anything that you're thinking needs to be adjusted, or are we looking pretty good for Q2 for majority of the products?
Q2, we're all good to go. We'll have an announcement. A lot of people have been messaging me saying, there's only 12 days left of for us to get in the PB4.
Hmm.
We will have an announcement out soon, which will have the date of when the first testing of PB4 will go live.
All right. Well, that's super exciting. Well, everyone, thank you for watching this video. Kieran, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of these insights.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Well, everyone, have a great day. See you guys next time at Caveman Logging Off.